Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we're gonna create this abstract typography composition with a little bit of animation, and I really hope you will enjoy this one. And if you do, please don't forget to leave a like, it will really help me. And if you're new to the channel and you'd enjoy tutorials like this in the future, please hit that subscribe and additionally bell button if you want to get notified when I release something new. And if you're new to the world of 3D and Blender, and you want to become a 3D illustrator, go and check out my courses that are carefully designed to teach you beginner and intermediate skills in quickest and most effective way. For example, with the new Ultimate 3D bundle, you can go from simple cubic designs all the way to full character illustration in a matter of weeks. So if you're interested, please go check out the link in the description. Let's jump right into empty Blender file, and first of all I will delete everything here. We'll create everything from scratch later, even the camera. So let's hit X and delete. And now let's press Shift A and I'll add a text object. So first of all, let's rotate it a little bit. So I'll press R, then X and 90 to rotate this 90 degrees. And now in the text options, let's switch the horizontal alignment to center and vertical to center as well. So we have the origin point in the middle. And let's write something. We can press Tab for edit mode and just write as with any other text tool. So let's delete the text and let's type in something like echo. I think that'll look great here. Now we can press Tab to exit the edit mode. I'll switch the font as well. You can do it here in the font section, and basically you can just open whatever font file you have. And here I'll just pick up the Arial font from the basic system fonts and I'll spread it out a little bit. So here in the spacing we can increase the character spacing, and of course we can later edit that as well, but I want to have it like this from the get-go. And now it's really easy to make the text 3D. Of course you can just go to the geometry and, you know, add some extrusion, but it won't be clean in any way. The geometry will be weird and I want to bevel this, so we need a little bit cleaner geometry. So I will just go back and without doing any extrusion, I'll just right click and convert to mesh. And now if you tab into the edit mode, you can see these are meshes, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is not clean at all. It's quite dense, so we'll make sure we have a little bit cleaner geometry here. Let's press 1 for front view, and first of all I will focus my view on the E letter. Now press 2 for edge select and just drag a selection above these edges and hold Shift to add to selection and select them all, and press X and delete edges. Make sure you don't dissolve them, that will break your geometry. Just delete these edges, and you can see even the faces in between got deleted, which is okay at this point. So we can now move on to the other letter and just drag a selection like this, and by holding Shift add to the selection, and just make sure you are getting all of these edges like this. And to better see what we are doing, we can zoom in here and make sure you are getting all of these, even the top one, and here probably as well. Just like that, and here's one more, and we can press X and delete these edges, and we left one here, so I'll delete that. And now let's move to the H letter, and that's quite simple. So let's just select everything here, press X and delete edges, and now we have something similar here. So let's select all of these edges. Okay, let's press X and delete these edges, and again I left one out, so let's clean it up. So this is what we have here, just these outline edges, and we can fill them, but it won't work with letter O. So let's just select E, C and H, and we can press F and it will create this n-gon in between those edges. But here this won't work, it would create just one face in this circle and the other face, large one, in this circle. It wouldn't be cut out. So let's fix this a little bit. I will go for vertex select by pressing 1 and just select these vertices, press X and delete edges, so it's interrupted here. And let's just select these two vertices, press F to fill, and here as well. So we have like this letter C, and now if we select it and press F, it will fill correctly. And now we can just select these four and press F to create additional face there. Don't worry about these edges. This is clean enough to extrude it and give it the bevel modifier. So now let's press A to select all and extrude. And to make sure we have everything in place, let's press A to select everything and Shift N to recalculate normals. And now we can just tab out, go into the modifiers panel and add a bevel modifier. And you can see we have a nice clean typography here. And I don't like these corners here, so let's go to the geometry and switch this to arc. This is much better here. And let's increase the segments and play with the amount. I want to go a little bit lower, something like this. And now in the shading, I want to enable harden normals. And in Blender 3.3, we can right click and shade auto smooth and change the value to 180 degrees. And now we have a nice smooth letters. And I want to go one step further. I want to add like one more layer here. So let's go to the edit mode again. And I will go for face select by pressing 3, select these front faces. Just like that, don't forget about this small one. And now just press Shift D to duplicate this and right click to release in place and E again to extrude. And you can see the bevel modifier is creating that ridge here, but I want to make this a little bit smaller, like it's inset in front of these larger letters. So while still in the face select, alt click this loop right here to select everything around, and let's hold alt and shift to repeat this and select all of these loops. And here as well, but be careful, we need to select the inside loop as well. And now let's press Alt S to scale along normals or shrink and fatten, whatever you want to call it. And now let's make this smaller, and you can additionally press S again to enable even scaling and hold Shift to make these increments smaller. Don't worry about the C letter, we'll fix that in a second. And just make this smaller like that. Okay, now you can see the bevel modifier is not working anymore, and that's because this geometry is destroyed right now by the scaling, but there's an easy fix. We can go into the edit mode again, and you can see we have these excess edges. So let's press 2 for select these edges and just press Ctrl X to dissolve them. And here as well, we have one here, one other here, and probably we don't need this one. And let's repeat the same down here. So just dissolve them with Ctrl X, and once you have the last one that's breaking your geometry, you will see the bevel modifier kicks back in and you have a nice letters like that. Now let's add some more objects to the scene to create this nice abstract like a solar system animation. So I will select the text, press G then Y and move it a little bit to the front. And now let's press Shift A and let's add mesh and circle. And now let's tab in, press R then X and rotate this 90 degrees. And let's look from the front. Probably the letters will need to be smaller, so let's tab out and let's adjust the letter size. I want them to be something like this. And we'll fix this, we'll fix the scaling when we have the camera in place. So right now I'm just creating the objects. So let's select the circle again and tap into the edit mode. We can press F to fill. And now let's press I to inset, and we can create an inset like this. Now once more to have a little gap, and one more right here. And now we can press X and delete faces. And let's hit 3 for face select and alt click this loop right here, press X and delete as well. They'll create another gap. And right here we can alt click this other loop and press I to inset to create a new geometry like this. And now if I go to the front view by pressing 1 on a numpad, we can just select one of these faces and hold Ctrl to expand the selection like this. Now hold Shift, add to the selection here, hold Ctrl, click here, Shift click and Ctrl click and repeat. And now we have this selection right there, press X and delete faces. Now we can tab out and press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision modifier. And you will see this interesting shape here. And I want to extrude that shape, but I want to keep this as non-destructive as possible. So we'll do everything here with the modifiers. So first of all, let's add a solidify modifier like this and increase the thickness. That will create a shape like this. And now let's add a bevel modifier on top of that and play with the amount. And of course, we can switch this to arc as well in the geometry section and add few segments on top. Now you can go to shading, enable harden normals, right click and shade auto smooth just like before with 180 degrees, and you have this shape right here. And of course we can play with that bevel amount to make this a little bit sharper. Now let's move on and create some more objects, and I will move these letters even further away because I want to add like a planet inside, or a sun if you will. So let's press Shift A and let's add a round cube. If you don't have this option here, go ahead and in the preferences add-ons activate the extra objects add-on. No need to download anything, and then you will see all of these options here. And let's switch to quad sphere here in the presets, and we can leave the subdivisions at 8. Right click and shade smooth, tab into the edit mode and press S to scale it down so it fits the middle here, just like that. And now we can create some more like planets. So let's press Shift D to duplicate this, right click to release in place. Now we can tab in, and with everything selected we can press A to select all if you don't have it, and press G then Z and move it up. And I'm doing this in the edit mode because you can see here the origin point stays there, and it'll be very easy to animate around this. So let's make it like that, and we can press S to scale it down and press G then Y to move it towards the front here. So if we look from the front, we'll have something like this in place, and later we can add more, but so far I'm satisfied with this. So let's set up some materials and some lighting, you know, so we have a scaffold for our scene, and then we'll play with the animation and the rest of the scene. So first of all, let's go to the render settings, and in the EV settings enable ambient occlusion, screen space reflections. These are the basic things to make the preview look okay. And then I'll switch to cycles and switch to GPU, enable some denoising, and in the performance reduce this to 512 and reduce the samples as well, something like 128 for the animation. That'll be enough to make previews. And now let's drag this up and let's switch it to shader editor, so we can work with our materials. And I want to have like a nice pattern here in the center. So first of all, let's switch to material preview and let's play with those materials. So let's select the planet in the middle, let's create a new material, and let's press Shift A, and I want to add a texture and a Musgrave texture. And if you preview this, you can just drag this to surface output. You can see the texture looks something like this, and we can plug in some converter color ramp. So let's press Shift A, converter color ramp, and let's plug it in, and let's compress the white and black channel so we have like a more defined edges there. And now we can play, you know, with the scale of the Musgrave, with the detail and dimensions, maybe a little bit more scattered like this, and then we can make it larger in scale. Okay, I quite like this. There's a lot you can do here. You can choose a different algorithm for the Musgrave, so just go ahead and play with it a little bit. And now let's press Shift A and let's add a mix shader, connect it right here, and we can connect the original principled BSDF. And now let's press Shift A and create other principled BSDF shader like this. Let me move it to a side and connect it here, and we'll connect our texture as a mask to our mix shader, so the final result looks like this. And now we are able to mix these two materials using the Musgrave texture. So let's just pick one of them and let's increase the metallic value all the way to 1, and you will see something like this will happen. And I can see right away I rather have the other part metallic, so I will just reduce this and do something like that. And now of course we can play with the color of the metallic. You can make like a rose gold or something to make it look fancy. That's totally up to you. I will probably leave it desaturated like this. Let me bring down the saturation. So that's our central planet, and we'll no longer need the node editor. So let's just switch this to back to timeline, and let's make it smaller. And now in the materials tab here, let's select the outer ring and let's create a new material. And I want to have something like a blue purple material, but quite dark, something like this, and with full roughness. And I'll use that for background as well. So let's now select the text, and we can add the new material here as well. And let's create another metallic material just like this, so we can have some nice reflections later. We can reduce the roughness tiny bit. And now let's go into the edit mode and press A twice to deselect everything, and now just hover over these letters in front and press L to select linked, and this way we can select these front letters and create the new material slot. And let's choose this background material here and click assign, so we'll have a little inset like this. I think this will look great. And let's select the planet here, and we can add that metallic material here as well, so we have some balance in the scene, and we are able to create this using only 3 materials, and the rest will be the lighting. So let's finish up with the scene, and I'll press Shift A and add a plane, and I'll press R then X and 90 to rotate this 90 degrees, and press G then Y and move it back, and let's press S to scale it up, make it quite large, and add this material right here. And then let's add a camera, so let's press Shift A and add camera. Now I'll press Alt R to reset its rotation, press G then Y, move it back, something like this. Now R then X and 90 degrees, make sure this arrow points up, that's the top of the screen. So now if you press 0 on a numpad, you have your camera view, and with the camera still selected, we can press G then Z twice to move it back and front. And of course you can choose to change the focal length instead to have larger or smaller perspective distortion. So that's all the creative tools you can use to make this scene work for you. So let's now go to the output tab and let's enter something like 1600 to 1200, and I will bring this a little bit closer and now make this smaller, because you can see in perspective this works a little bit differently than if you look from the front and you have this orthographic projection. So let's go back to the camera view, and now let's play with the lighting. So I will again bring this up a little bit and switch back to shader editor. We'll do this one more time and switch from object to world. I want to use the HDRI lighting, and let's press Shift A and let's go to texture and choose environment texture like this and connect it right here. And now we can press Shift A and let's add a vector, and we can choose mapping. And finally let's press Shift A and go to input, and we'll need texture coordinates here. So let's plug generated texture here into the vector, and let's output it in the environment texture. And right now you can't see anything happening, but if you actually enable scene lights and scene world, you will see everything is purple here because there's nothing connected here in this texture. So we'll click open and load up HDRI image. The link is in the description. There are a lot of great free HDRIs there. You can pick your own, or you can download the one I'm listing here and I will be using right now. So I will just load it up into the scene, and right now we have our HDRI in place, and this is lighting our scene based off the position of the sun in the HDRI. So that's why I included the mapping node, because right now we can just rotate this like that around the z-axis, and we can place our sun wherever we want to. And I want to have it from the angle a little bit, something like 147 degrees. So now if we look from the front, there is just a little bit of a reflection, but most of the reflection comes from the ambience of the scene, from the sky, from the grass and stuff like that. So that will add our metallic objects a little bit more of a spark, and it all looks a little bit nicer. But as a key lights, I will actually use area lights. So right now we can just switch this back to the timeline. I think this is the last time we use the nodes, so let's do that, and let's press Shift A and add light and area light. I'll press G, then Z, move it up like this. Now hold period on a keyboard and switch pivot to 3D cursor. You can do it here as well. And now let's press R, then Y, and rotate it on a Y axis. Press G, then Z twice to bring it closer or, further away. And I will rotate it on a Z axis a little bit as well to get a little bit of a front angle here. And then I will rotate it like this, and bring up the value to something like 250. So we have something like that in place, and I want some light on the other side as well. Maybe this won't need to be so strong, maybe something like 150 will be enough, and you will see why in a second. So let's press Shift D, and I will just press R then Y to rotate this to other side and change the color to something a little bit warmer, to have like a different color, a little bit of a gradient on the background there. And now the main lighting feature, press Shift A and let's add area light. And let's just scale it up a little bit, and let's make it really strong, something like 500. And this is what I'm talking about, this is what I like here. And if I now go to the rendered preview and let me hold Ctrl B and limit the view only for the camera bounce, the light creates this kind of a cut in the background there. So now I can just press G then Y and move it back so it doesn't light the object but only lights the background. And this is the effect that we are getting, and I really like this. So I want to leave this in place and make it even stronger, something like 1500 and maybe a little bit larger. And now we can actually proceed with the animation. So first of all, let's set up some variables, and I want to set this to 240 so it's easily divided by 30 frames, and as a consequence let's set frame rate to 30. So this will have like 8 seconds I think. And now when on the frame 1, let's just select this sphere right here. Let's press I and insert rotation, and now scrub all the way back to 240. Press R then Z and 360 to rotate this 360 degrees, and press I and insert rotation again, and you will see this is rotating, but it's accelerating and decelerating. So hovering over the timeline, we can press T and switch this to linear interpolation, and now it will be a constant movement. And now let's select the outer ring. Let's go back to the frame 1 and press I and insert rotation as well, and let's go back and choose R then Y. We'll rotate on the Y-axis and 360 again, and let's confirm with enter. Press I again and insert the rotation keyframe, and again we'll press T and choose linear interpolation. So now everything is rotating 360 degrees like this. And now let's go back to the frame 1 and we'll add one more rotation to this object right here. You can see the origin point is still there. So what we can do is to just press I, insert rotation keyframe, go all the way to 240, and now press R then Y, but I want to go to the opposite way as the ring is rotating. So let's press minus and 720. I want this to do 2 rounds instead of 1. Let's confirm and press I and insert the rotation. So now we have something like this, but again I will press T, hovering over the timeline, and choose linear interpolation, so we have something like that in place. And maybe that's too fast, so you know, whatever, let's just go to frame 240 and press R then Y, and let's say 360. So we are going back 360 degrees. Let's press I and insert rotation. So now this rotates on a same speed as the rings, so we can now move on. And what I want to do is to go to frame 1, select this area light in the background, hold shift and select the ring, press Ctrl P and parent to object. So now this will rotate as well, and I really love this result. And we are still able to, you know, scale it and change, you know, its variables and change how the light behaves. So I really love this. And one more thing I want to do is to add like more planets. So we can select this sphere right here and press Shift D to duplicate. And now let's expand this, and I want to press Ctrl Tab here in the timeline. That will switch us to the graph editor, and press period on a numpad to focus on the whole animation. And you can see here is the Y movement, and we can now go ahead and expand this on the left. We won't be using X rotation, so press X and delete, and same for Z. And we are only left with the Y rotation, so let's press A to select both keyframes. And we can now press G then Y and move this around like this. So let's enter 180 degrees, so it's on the opposite side, and hit enter. And what we did right now is to use the animation that was existing on the object before we duplicated it, and just shifted the whole graph 180 degrees. So now they are rotating on the opposite sides like this. And one more thing I want to do, I want to have a smaller object as well here. So let's press Shift D again, and this time I want to press G then Y and just move these 90 degrees up like that. But at the same time I want this to be rotating into the negative direction. So we can select this last keyframe right here and press G then Y and move this 720 degrees. So you can see it will go to the opposite direction like this. And of course we don't want them to collide here, but that won't happen because we used Shift D, so these are separate objects. We can go into the edit mode and make this smaller like this, and if you have the pivot point on the cursor, it will scale towards the cursor. But if you hold period on a keyboard, switch to median point, look, you can scale it in place like this, and even, you know, move it around. I don't want it to be touching the ring here, so let's do something like this and move it closer, like this is its, you know, elliptical path or something, and now it looks like that. And for these on the outside, let's make them not so shiny, so let's give them like a background color like this, and we'll have only one of these in the middle. And I think this could be a little bit faster, so it's more interesting. So we can just select this keyframe, press G then Y, and move it another 720 up, so it will move a little bit faster. And I think this is okay right now, so let's have some fun with the text animation. Let's select the text. And first thing I want to do, let me just switch to material preview because the cycles is a little bit slow. And now let's select the letters, go into the edit mode, and I will press A twice to deselect everything, and alt click these outer loops again just like before, and here the inside as well, and just press Alt S and scale these, and I'll enable even scaling with S, and just make these a little bit larger so they are more bold and it's a little bit more visible that there is, you know, outer shape of that letter. And now I want to animate them, but I want to animate them separately. Like I want them to do like a sequence of rotations, so we'll need to separate them into their own respective objects, but that's quite easy to do. Just go into the edit mode, press A to select all, and choose P and separate by loose parts. And you can see we now have 8 different objects, and there are 8 objects because we had these, you know, in sets created before, so we now need to join them, but that's quite easy to do. So now tab out and just select these two by holding Shift, press Ctrl J to join them back together, and do this for every other letter just like that. And now hold Shift, select them all in the object mode. We are out of the edit mode, and right click and choose Set Origin to Geometry, and now they have their own origin points and they can rotate on their own, and it will be quite easy to animate them now. So first of all, let's select the E letter and go to the frame 1. Let me zoom in a little bit here, and we won't need any other axis for rotation, so let's press N, and here on the X rotation, right click and insert single keyframe. That will only create the channel you need, so you don't need to go back and delete them. And now we can just crop to, let's say, frame 30, and let's just click here and do plus 360, and that will calculate your rotation. Right click and insert single keyframe, and you have your rotation. Looks like this. And now I want to first of all change the pace of that animation, so probably I need to make this a little bit larger, like frame 50, and then select this handle and make it like more eased out, so it's fast in the beginning and then kind of eases out very slowly. And now I want to transfer this to all of the other objects, so let's select C, H and O and hold Shift and select E as last, press Ctrl L and choose Link Animation Data. So now they are all animated, they now share the same animation data, so we need to separate them. So go into the object, relations, make single user and object animation, and right now we can separately change their animation. So let's select the C, press A to select all and press G then X and 30 frames. So we are shifting these 30 frames, and that's too much probably. So let's go back and let's press G then X and I don't know, like 15 frames. So they will rotate gradually, and we'll do the same for the other letters. So let's select H, let's select everything, press G then X, and now it'll be 30. And here let's select all and G then X and 45. So if you select all of them, you will see now they have these animation curves and are gradually rotating like this. So if you look from the front and play back the animation, you have something like this happening. And now to add a little bit of a glare to whole animation, we can just press Shift A and add a point light, press G then Y, move it to the front and over the letters, and move it on x-axis quite away so it doesn't affect our whole scene. So let me go to the cycles view so I actually see what the light is causing here. First of all, it will be quite stronger, so maybe something like 150 to actually create some glare. And now we'll press G then X and move it away until it looks like it doesn't affect our scene anymore, just like that. And press I and insert its location on the frame 1. And now if we go to the frame 240, we can just press G then X and move it to the other side like this, and press I and insert location. So now we'll have the light going over these letters and kind of lighting them up, creating this glare. It will look quite nice in movement. So let's preview what we have here. We have a little planet's rotation, some letters rotation, and some additional glare. So this could serve nicely as some kind of, logo reveal or some, landing page animation or something like that. Whatever you need it for. I really hope you like it and that it will inspire you to create your own projects like this, your own different ideas of rotational logo animations or something like that. And if you do, I want to see them. So we now have a Discord server. You can join using link in the description. Just go there. There are a lot of amazing people doing amazing things. We inspire each other. We are creative every week. We are doing these little challenges and stuff like that. So come on and join our Discord server. And again, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave that like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.